my first bank manager, who was a Dara Scott, who was a wonderful man, he said something to me once, and at the time I dismissed it, and now I just think it was genius, unfortunately. And he said to me, no matter how good something is, people can always F it up.
Hello and welcome to our episode of Sweet Liberation. We are so excited today, aren't we, Luke, for
Absolutely, yeah.
episode. We have one of our favourite humans on the planet joining us today, our wonderful Mr. Paul Waite. Good morning, Paul, and thank you so much for joining us on Sweet Liberation.
It's a great honour to be on Sweet Liberation and to be doing this with you and Luke. You are
so much.
The two most enthusiastic entrepreneurs ever created by God. Or whatever you believe.
Yeah. Wonderful. I need to introduce you, Paul, for people that don't know you, because you are, apart from one of our most beloved people, I need to introduce you. So Paul is an accomplished business owner, entrepreneur and chartered accountant who is also a radio presenter and man of Somerset.
Radio founder.
Yes, and also founder of Aspen Waite. And you've been disrupting the market for many, many years, Paul. Is that right? You're a market disruptor.
Without you. Think what I could have done if I'd known you.
Yes.
Well, we're in each other's worlds now, so we are so
disruption
excited today. And Paul has been spending his career helping people in business and business alike, driven to offer the very best advice and service, but especially something which is very heartfelt. Paul is a man who wears his feelings and his spirit on his sleeve. So with that said, Paul, welcome so much to Sweet Liberation. And yeah, we are so excited to have you here and to have some of your wisdom on the show, some of your sprinkle of your magic that you bring into business. So yeah, let's start first of all by just talking about your journey into business, because it's a fascinating one. Talk to us about that.
Gosh, that's open, isn't it? God. So what actually is the question? So how did I get involved in business? Or
yes, what was your inspiration to be an entrepreneurial person that you are? Because it's something that's either in your DNA or it isn't. So when did you discover that you were really truly an entrepreneur at heart?
Right, that's a very interesting question. So I'm not sure whether to go like M-A-Z. So looking back on it, because now obviously I do accept that I'm an entrepreneur. If you'd asked me that question 10 years ago, I wouldn't have given you the same answer, because it's only really over the last 10 years since I've been doing a huge amount of podcasting and public speaking, etc. That obviously one of the things I look at, so take yourselves, you're like my little baby entrepreneurs. I feel it's very important that I should be honest. You know what I mean? So one of my probably the biggest thing I want is to have a legacy, which is to influence as many other aspirational business owners as I can in my lifetime. So it's you can't really do that if you are in denial about things and say, oh, I'm not really an entrepreneur and all that. So I totally accept I am now. And one of the things I've been trying to do for the last 10 years, which is also why I write books, is to try and help people. So the first book I wrote, for instance, was with the intention of trying to help people not make the mistakes I made. So it was very honest, talking about real things like drinking and stress and all this sort of stuff, So my entrepreneurial nature first really intangibly revealed itself when I was, I think, about 8 years old, or no more than 9. My father had two big plum trees in his back garden, with lots of fruit on them, and I can't remember what was in Paul's head at that time, and I walked into Bridgewater, which is where I was born, and I went to a fruit and veg store called Ken Viggers, and I basically said, I've got all these lovely plums, would you like to buy all my plums? And he said yes. I do think there was some degree of negotiation, which is quite good for a young boy. And so I sold, I don't know, £100 of plums to Viggers for a bit. Without being conceited, so this is a fact. I was officially a genius at the age of 7, I think, and as a consequence of that, I was in the top class for 3 years in a row, and I was very fortunate. My teachers, particularly the head teacher, and the teacher of the top class, very committed to my future development. And so it's quite odd, really. I haven't come across any other person where this has happened. So they started looking at careers for me, and I think we looked at things like architects and civil engineering. And then I've always been a bit of a genius with numbers. So I can't remember how it came to it, but Mr. Barmforth, his name was. He basically said to me, "Right, sonny boy, you've got to be a chartered accountant." So this is before I'm 11. Being rather autistic, I think I wouldn't. Again, I wouldn't. If you interviewed me 10 years ago, I wouldn't have said I was autistic, but I think I probably am now. I've always thought I was a bit OCD, but I'd say I was mildly autistic, which I think is a good thing, by the way. In this case, so I was told that I should become a chartered accountant, and so that was it. So. Probably in terms of clear career path, I doubt if you find anyone in the world ever who, at the age of 11, had decided that's what he was going to do. So when I was 14 years old, I managed to get a job as assistant to the chief financial officer of a very large company in Bridgewater called Sealed Motor, and they were the biggest central heating pump manufacturers in Europe. My father worked there, and a guy called Mike Ruffin was the financial director, and he had no idea about how to pay, what to pay someone who was 14. And would you believe, this is in 1974, I started off on £50 a week, which was an enormous sum, really. I mean, I don't know what it would be today. He was probably paying me like 25 grand a year as a 14-year-old or something. And basically, my job was their auditors were Pricewaterhouse. Pricewaterhouse had produced what they call a management letter, which is outlining all the weaknesses they perceive in like the financial system. And basically, Mike sat me down and he said, "Right, sonny boy, your job is to tick off all the weaknesses." And so I started off. One of the things they didn't like was there wasn't a register of all the items of plant in the factory. So I basically had to create one. So I had to create a plant register for every single machine, and then log like how much it cost, every time it got repaired, repaired to blah blah machine, £1,310, all that sort of thing. And I'm not the sort of person, I either do something 100% or 0%, and Mike Ruffin really liked me, and so I ended up working at Sealed Motors. So it's a bit sad, this, in some respects, isn't it, looking back on it? So for 5 whole years, I spent every single day of my holidays working at SMC. So I was either studying or I was working. So I was earning. So obviously I went on to do lots of other things. I got involved in setting up their brand new computer system, for instance, when I was that was back in '79. That was a big thing, So I managed to get O-level accounts when I was 15 years old. I did accountancy and economics amongst other A levels, and by the time I was about 17, I knew where I was going to go. I went to Cardiff University because it had what I thought was the best course for the future. So I got exemptions from the first part of the chartered accountancy exams. So I went to university, got my degree, got eventually decided, difficult thing, I worked for Deloitte Haskins and Sells, who were the biggest company in the world at the time. And I achieved Mr. Barnforth's objective, and I became qualified before I was 23.
Amazing.
So that's how. And then I suppose I became the world's greatest auditor to start with. That's probably the best way. But I was actually I did the big audits in the big companies, right? Like really big ones. and then I got to about 27, 28, and I thought there's got to be more to life than being. Well, I should say, in the meantime, obviously people had appreciated that I actually had a personality, which was extremely rare for an accountant. So when I joined Ernst & Young as a manager, they went, "Oh my God, you've got a personality." So I was very fortunate. They put me through their training, lecturing and teaching program, which was really intensive, like 12 hours a day, Sunday to Sunday, being filmed and all that, being ripped apart. We turned up I remember turning up on the Sunday at the 6-star hotel in Runnymede in Egham. And they basically said, right, tomorrow you'll do your first lecture and you had to talk about how to do something. That's what I remember. And so obviously, so I started talking, having to talk to groups of people when I was about 25, I suppose. And I've been involved in training ever since. And then I decided I wanted to be a corporate expert. So that's what I did. I got a job with the 10th largest company. And I was also, it turned out I also ended up being in charge of their magazine. So I was editor of the magazine, which was something else, as you know, I do.
Yes.
And then I suppose I got heavily involved in innovation when I was about 30 with a client of mine. Started out just as a client. And one day, just after I'd formed Aspen Waite, actually, in 1993, the inventor quit, leaving. So basically, there was this biodegradable polymer company with an invention with nobody left other than me, load of creditors, about 20 shareholders. I thought this is it. If I just form my business, I'm going to go bust in weeks. And 6 months later, I was sat at the board table of British Technology Group in London and signed a partnership agreement with them. And that company ended up listed on OFX.
Wow.
So obviously I did, that was basically, I suppose resilient is a good word. And then I suppose one of the things, one of the reasons I like working with you, for instance, is like, you were in the room with me, and I don't know if I'm going to say this because it's a nice thing to say for you. You and Luke did a presentation, and I don't know if you remember. After about 5 minutes, I went, "Do you remember that?" And I said, "That is the best presentation of anyone I've ever heard in 41 years of being qualified." And of course, whether you will be successful or not, I like the fact that you believe you will be. Right? I've got no doubt at all that Nabila and Luke think they're going to be global stars, and that's quite, it's attractive. So in my DNA, I want to help people be better, and it doesn't really matter what they are. That can be making someone run faster or getting someone to cycle another 50 miles than they think they could do, or whatever, And so what happened is I think, because obviously in the past, I was a clever person and you were told to sit behind your desk and that's what you had to do, and I wouldn't have been able to talk to you, for instance, like I do now. When I was, and a lot of people said to me when I formed Aspen Waite that you would just get a load of plumbers and painters and you won't be anything. And actually within 18 months, maybe quicker, in 18 months of starting Aspen Waite as a sole trader with obviously no clients, I ended up acting for First Group PLC, who are the largest train and bus company in the country, initially as financial consultant, and 6 months later I became European managing consultant for First Group. So and I had to do I had to do 11 days for them a month, but if I did less I still got paid my full amount. So I did that, going all over Central and Eastern Europe, talking to bus companies and things. And so what I suppose what's happened over my 31st year in Aspen Waite is I've been able to build an accountancy practice, but also as opportunities came along, I was able to say, I want to do that, and I haven't had anyone to stop me, So I've been able to do lots of different things, and as a consequence of that, in terms of the entrepreneurial thing, about going back to what Luke was saying about the spiritual thing, before we were on air today. So I don't mind. This is truth. This is what happens. So people can think I'm crazy, because I probably am anyway. I was literally sitting in my car on a Sunday at some traffic lights, and it was like a spiritual experience. Like someone came into my head. It was really, very, very vivid. And basically, the message was that I had to stop portraying Aspen Waite as a firm of accountants, and that the future lay in a diverse, multidisciplinary professional services business. And so again, I decided that's what I was going to do. So I went ahead and did that, and created what I call the Complete Business Growth Service. And as a consequence of that, now, as you know, we basically, the aim is, if anybody, say, take yourselves, if you need a service, then the objective is I know I can either do it myself, or I know someone that can.
Amazing.
So we've ended up with this sort of rather, I suppose you probably wouldn't sit down and tell someone to have a group that looks like mine, but somehow or other, it's funny actually. It's one of the things I'd say as a tip to other entrepreneurs is a lot of things that I do are probably even stupid to start with, or not necessarily, particularly well planned out in the sense that you would be taught, and then I sort of make sense of them afterwards and make them work. So if you take the radio, for instance, what Aspen Waite Radio and music has become has got completely and utterly different to how it started, completely. But what it's done is it's built on core principles, which is, as you know, I totally believe in inclusivity. So everybody is welcome. You mustn't alienate anybody. If someone if I don't care whether someone's got no money or they're a billionaire, that sort of, and carrying those principles into other sectors, particularly music. So if you take the music at the moment, I'm now friendly with a lot of bands and singers, and basically, as you know, if you listen to Radio 1, they have a playlist of 50 songs or whatever, and if you're some aspiring band from Copenhagen, nobody gives a monkeys. So what we've done is decide to be that someone, and so we're sort of building this sort of global music business, which is very much in the image of Aspen Waite.
Amazing. Amazing. That's why we love you. The energy and I think when to describe even somebody like you as a chartered accountant just does not put in any way, as you said, it doesn't give you the status that you deserve, because you are an entrepreneur with ideas and creativity and expansion and unlimited possibilities in what you can be and become. So that's the bit that we loved when we met you, didn't we, Luke?
Yeah, absolutely, yes. And it's that diversification as well, and also that wealth of knowledge that you bring to the table. I mean, and everything and we feel that we can come to you with problems, and as you say, you'll either know the answer yourself, or you know somebody that knows the answer, and we get that resolved very quickly. Also, the other massive value is this sounding board that you know when we come to you and we say, what do you think of this idea? And sometimes when you're within you know what it's like, you're right up against that coal face, and sometimes it's hard to step back slightly when you're in that entrepreneur world and you're running like a mouse on that wheel, and actually it's able to step back, and then it's nice to be able to talk to you and say, are we going mad?
Probably.
Yeah, no, yeah. That's right.
We are going mad. I think you have to be a little bit mad to embark on this journey. But we know that you love cycling, and you enjoyed that part of your life. Yeah, was it 1,000 kilometers in 8 days, or 1,000 miles in 8 days? What was that?
1,136
miles. Wow, in 8 days. That is awesome. That's awesome. Well, I'm not sure if you realize that Luke was also a cyclist.
I think he said he was, yeah.
Yeah, I did a bit of cycling. And I tell you what my claim to fame was back in the early 80s was that I was spending more money on bicycle tyres than car tyres.
I'll tell you an interesting. I know it's a bit off piste, but when I did John O'Groats to Land's End, just out of interest, the reason why, so you can actually do about 830 miles. I think is the shortest you can cycle from. So you might think, why did Paul cycle 1100 miles?
I'm going down.
I say again, I don't know anybody in the world. Probably there's a couple, but who would have been stupid enough to do this. One of the charities that I cycled for happened to be based in Portsmouth, and the chief executive of the charity said to me, obviously she probably wasn't thinking too much about how extreme a request this was. She said it'd be really good if you could call in Portsmouth on the way through. Now, if you get a map and you look at where you would go from John O'Groats to Land's End, Portsmouth is probably 100 miles, at least 100 miles away from where you would be. Because I suppose one of the things people say sometimes is that Paul doesn't know what no means. So I just thought, well, yeah, that'd be a nice thing to do. So I actually had to cycle from John O'Groats to Land's End via Portsmouth, which is why it ended up being so many extra miles. I mean, the good thing about it is I ended up cycling through the New Forest, for instance, which was quite nice. But the good thing was I ended up in Portsmouth, and the whole Portsmouth football team were there, and the mayor and lots of disadvantaged young people, I remember. So, but that was very rewarding. Probably, in terms of passing on something to people, of all the things I've ever done, that's the thing I most enjoyed, because I basically had to make a decision as to whether I was going to do it or not. So I did, and then I basically ended up cycling. So the week before I did it, I did 6 17.5-mile circuits, which included a grade B and a grade C hill, in 6 hours and 24 minutes. And I got home and I thought I knew I was going to do it. And as someone, as you know, who's got so many diverse things on, just getting up in the morning and knowing that all I had to do was to cycle 15 miles an hour for about 8 hours every day, and that was my job done, and so I would go through my routine, go and have my breakfast, go and make sure I took all my tablets and put all the Vaseline on and all that, and follow my routine. And it was a wonderful journey, actually, in terms of I'm very hard on myself. I found that after about 3 days, it didn't actually matter if I'd finished. I don't know if you can understand that. It was. I actually was at peace with myself. I remember sitting on my bike thinking, "You're a good chap, Waitey," and you don't actually need to finish. So it was a really nice thing to do.
Amazing. And I know you talk about in your book, because you've written 3 books, is it?
Well, I've written several books, but the 3 books in this series, yeah.
Oh, wonderful.
I've got at least 2 already finished in my head, but unfortunately, one of them particularly, I need to. I don't want to write the book unless how can I put it? Some of the things I'm doing, it's not definite that I'm going to be successful, so I don't want to write the book in the event that it ends up, not getting to Z. So that's why I've got these sort of books finished in my head, but I haven't started writing them, because I want to write it off the back of success, if that makes sense.
Amazing. But you talk about in your book, The Stream That Became a River, you talk about the serendipitous synchronicity. So this is, we could say that this was the way that we met, and now we're
exactly.
in the whole journey together of helping the world become a healthier and better place, so that we can leave a legacy as well for future generations. So this was an incredible synchronicity that started in a flight We were sitting next to somebody on an aeroplane that told us, if you guys are in business, do not do anything until you have spoken to Paul. Aspen Waite. And then the next thing we know, we're meeting with you, Paul. So let's talk about that synchronicity, that serendipitous synchronicity that you talk about in your book. What do you think that happened there? Because we felt some energy in the room, and there was something very magical that happened for us, for sure.
Yeah, I have to say, going about being, I'm actually very proud of that book, because the first two books, first book in particular, is sort of Paul's an idiot. This is all the stupid things I've done. Like hiring the wrong people because you're scared about paying the right amount of money to someone, all that sort of stuff. The last book, The Stream That Became a River, I've actually got whole chapters in there which are, I think, really technically excellent. In terms of, I think there's a chapter on brand differentiation. There's a chapter which I think was a brave thing to write. Basically, how to create your own luck. There's a chapter on that.
Yes.
And the thing I'm probably most intellectually proud of, maybe in my entire life, is I came up with the concept of serendipitous synchronicity. Now, both serendipity and synchronicity, or synchronicitous behavior, are not new. I think what is new, and so, for instance, in my book I write about this. I think it was Carl Jung wrote a whole thesis on synchronicity, for instance. And so what I did is, which is why I'm proud about it, because it's like a mixture of lunacy and really intense intellectual effort put together into one concept. So what serendipitous synchronicity basically is all about is how two parties, and it doesn't have to be two people. So in this case, it's three people, isn't it? So, but it could be more than, it could be me, and there could be five of you, or whatever. So let's talk about two groups. How two groups of people, if they behave in a certain fashion, you can get to Z very, very quickly. All right. So if you just look at this as a flow chart. So what happens? This happens all the time, actually, and people won't realise it. And when I say this now, there'll be people all over the world going, "Yeah, that happened. That happened to me yesterday, or that happens to me all the time." So you get obviously it has to start with one person. So let's take you. This is a good case study. So you're sat on a plane, and this guy says to you, he mentions my name, right? So if you then think, if you were drawing a flow chart and you did the thing about what could come out of that, one of the things could be interesting, no thanks, right? That would have been the end of it, wouldn't it? Right. So then you go on, and the thing is, okay, follow up. Okay, so we've gone on to the okay, follow up. So then you go, okay, follow up, contact Paul. Okay, so that's the next step, and then the chain passes over to me, because then what happened after that is now in my camp, isn't it? Because I could have said, bugger off, I don't want to talk to you, or you know what I mean, or I'm too busy, or I don't want to be doing that. So I then turn around and say, yeah, that'll be nice. Yeah, we'll meet. Okay, so we've now gone another one down the flow chart. We then get to the meet. Okay, you sit down, and you obviously you could have behaved in a range of fashions, couldn't you? But I'd say what you did was there were two really, I don't mind, two very lovely people, actually. I'd say that's what I would think. Two really nice human beings with this massive passion for their product. And I've met a lot of people, and as I say, your opening 5 minutes was the best of any people I'd ever been in a room with. And so going on with the flow chart, so you've done that, right? You've got this opportunity now. So flow chart is don't blow it or maximize, yeah? So you go off, right? Then comes back to me, digest, analyze, right? I then, for instance, I then have to sit down and think about how I tell you what I'm thinking when I'm listening to you, because I totally practice this concept, and I'm not shy, and I don't mind saying. No, so I don't understand why people can't say I like you. Do you know what? You're a really nice person. What's wrong with that? You know, you're a really nice person. It's really nice to know you. You're a great person. Thank you for doing that for me, or whatever. You know. So I turn around and say, and I did that, and well done. That was absolutely excellent, right? And then obviously, you know, you obviously sit there and think, oh, that's nice, isn't it? You know, Paul thinks we're good or whatever, and so you feel good about yourselves, and then you start creating this sort of we start getting to we quite quickly, don't we? Yeah. You know, and of course you're totally committed. So one of the things I've come up with, I don't think I've written about it yet, so I'm going to write a chapter on my next book, which is called Sincerity of Ambition. So what you find is there are a lot of people who will tell you that they're going to end up being global superstars, and their businesses are going to be sold for £50 million or something, right? But actually, when it comes down to it, and obviously, I'm a good judge, because I definitely have sincerity of ambition, right? No one could ever turn around to me. You might say I was an idiot or misguided or something, but you couldn't fault my sincerity, right? So what you find is a lot of people will say that, and then you'll send them an email, say on a Friday night, and then, you know, there's nothing wrong with this. I'm just saying it to me, though, it's not how you should be if you're sincere about your ambition. So I can think of one person, for instance, and you know, and he'll send me a text if I'm lucky and say, "Oh, yeah, sorry, I got your email, but I'm doing some stuff with the boys today, or I'm going for a walk in the forest," you know. And I think that's fine, but that's not really the behaviour of someone that wants to be a global star. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, so what happens is I tell you how I feel about you. We then have this discussion, and I think probably by the end of the first meeting, we'd all said to each other, "Yes, we're going to work together," didn't we?
That's right.
Right, now you think about how long that process could take some people. Could take weeks or months, couldn't it? Right? And it requires a number of things. It requires, obviously, maybe genuineness, ability, having done your homework, actually being an expert in what you're talking about. And obviously there's a chemistry, I suppose, you know, like certain people get on and other people don't get on, you know. I like people who are pleased to be alive, like you are, you know. It's like, yeah, I'm up today, and you know, I'm going to jump over 7 mountains, and I'm still going to be the most exhausting person in the world afterwards, you know. And really, it just makes common sense, because it's what happens when people say, hey, you know, actually we quite like each other, and there's so much benefit from us being in a world together. And that's what serendipitous synchronicity is all about. It's all about the decisions that two groups can make, either positively or negatively, to get you to a point down the road.
Amazing. This one of the things that we felt very, very strongly, I think I can speak for both of us, is that for us, we've been very, very blessed to welcome people to work with us. That we, first of all, there's a few criteria, but that we must respect and like very much. So those are the things that we're key. A lot of people don't put those KPIs in their you know, kind of spreadsheet mentality of running a business. But when you're running something which is a passion and a vision, there has to be that sort of emotional and chemical chemistry between the people that are able to push together and work together in the same ambition and drive. So we felt that strongly, didn't we, Luke, when we met?
We did, and that those are the parallels that actually we're starting as our relationship is growing. What I love about it is the fact that there are so many parallels that you don't even know about yet, Paul, in the things that are in your book and everything that I've done. And also you mentioned things like talking about cycling, but there are many others there that are quite what's the word? You must have two words that describe this, where there is the parallel that is, part of that synchronicity, but there must be two other words that describe that kind of fate, that we're and driving in the same direction, and those things that we've been doing together all over this, over the years. I mean, a quick a thing that I used to when I was a teenager, late teens, I used to play ice hockey for Richmond Flyers, and so I love the Gretzky quote, and I was top goal scorer, and that quote was
my favourite quote of all time.
Oh, it's my favourite quote of all time. Well, there you go. So what are the two words?
You miss with every shot you don't take.
Right. Exactly, and the other, and I used to be trained by a wonderful chap called Alan Cassidy, and when I used to do a lot of competitions, and he used to say, "Yeah, the more I train, the luckier I get." And again, that's another thing that it's and a lot of people say to me, "Yeah, you're so lucky, you just won that." I was like, "Yeah." That's right. So it's those parallels are really interesting. You meet somebody, you like that person, you engage with them, and then you actually start discovering these things that you've been actually on a similar path, which is quite very, very interesting for me. A bit spooky.
I have a view. I have a view on that, if you don't mind me saying.
Please.
Yeah. So one of the things actually on Aspen Waite Radio, we actually have our own resident clairvoyant, Claire Stone, who's fantastic, and she. So it was great. I had her as a guest on my Friday show recently, and it was wonderful to actually have the opportunity to talk to such a lovely lady about things that. So I've been very interested in the occult and religion all my life, basically, and to actually have such an accomplished person and say, how do you feel about this? How do you feel about that? So I totally believe this. So I think that there are certain people in the world that you are destined to meet, or you are supposed to meet. Okay, and rather than get too involved in the religion of it and get a head up, I usually call what people would call God the maker or something like that. I'd say the maker, because then it takes the wet out of it, Because, for instance, as someone that's read the Bible several times through, one of the things I don't like about conventional religion is when you consider, for instance, that there are infinite number of other stars and planets, are we seriously thinking that some life form 10,000 light years away is reading the Bible? Of course it isn't, or whatever it is, but it doesn't mean it doesn't have a soul. It doesn't mean that extraterrestrial life force doesn't have a soul or something. So I think that there are people, and certainly if Claire was here, she believes that there are people that you meet that are, say, I don't know, 30 or 40 people that I don't know if you believe in reincarnation or you've had a previous life, but so she will say that, say you've had 5 lives, then there are certain people who have been in all of those lives with you, right? And I have a client, for instance, it's true, who actually believes that in 2 lives she was my mother. It's true. It's true. She wouldn't be embarrassed to say that. So, and that includes one life where she claims we were in Egypt and she was my mother. And she's really into all this, and she claims to have some recall. So anyway, so I think there are people you're supposed to meet. My personal take on it is it's not absolutely 100% guaranteed, which is why the serendipitous synchronicity thing comes in. So, for instance, Luke. So let's just take Luke for now. Luke is off doing his thing in the past. Paul's off doing his thing in the past, right? They're actually like little soul brothers, but they don't even know who they are, right? They're each doing their own little thing, right? To get to a point where the maker says one day, right, you two, it's the right time for you to meet now, right? If that makes sense, right? And then what you find is that, gosh, isn't that, I did that, or gosh, I'm interested in that as well. Fancy you thinking that,
Yeah.
Why? And it's not a coincidence. It's because it's meant to be, right? You're supposed to go through all your journeys to get to a point where you meet me. But as I say, my first bank manager, who was a Dara Scott, who was a wonderful man, he said something to me once, and at the time I dismissed it, and now I just think it was genius, unfortunately. And he said to me, no matter how good something is, people can always F it up.
Yeah.
So that means, even if, for instance, you're supposed to meet somebody and be with them, if you don't, so for instance, if I don't know, you were having a bad day when you met me, or I really couldn't be bothered to listen to you or something, then each party has the ability to change what was supposed to happen. That's what I think. Okay, so it's not just a case of saying, right, you two, you get together, off we go. There's a bit more to it than that, but that's what I think. So that's why I think people are meant to be together, to gravitate to each other, and then when it happens, this is my take on it, is that your soul recognizes mine, maybe, right? And so outside of our sentient experience, there's something else going on. You explained it probably differently to how I would, but we're all different, aren't we? So you were talking about, feeling some sort of spiritual thing going on. I would explain it like that, that there's the conscious Luke and the conscious Paul, and then there's the inside, if you like, the essence that really makes you who you are, and me. And they're also like having a conversation at the same time. This was like, hi, I haven't seen you for 500 years or something. I'm just being a bit daft now, but that sort of thing.
That's really fantastic. I mean, it's such an incredible thing, because journeys bring people together, and journeys help you take your trajectory for a legacy. And this is something that we're really passionate about, is creating a legacy with this project. And it's really interesting because you talk about Aspen Waite in the same way as a legacy project, but probably that's the way that we recognized each other in this amazing journey, and it was so exciting to meet you. So what do you see in your vision of this sweet liberation movement and revolution that we're creating over here, and that you're part of? What is your vision for helping the world in leaving a legacy with us?
But I'd be a party political broadcast on behalf of Zukr, or the Zukr party. Vote Zukr, vote Zukr. So, looking at it sort of coldly, I suppose, are you going to be successful? So, number one, you've got a good product, you're passionate about it, and you have sincerity of ambition, right? Good start. Then I think then to some extent it's all to do. I'm always going on like, planning, service, all those things. You need to embrace those. Obviously, to some extent, what's outside of your control, to some extent, is so the pricing point, I think from memory, is about 5 times. The Zukr product is about 5 times more expensive than a conventional product, for instance, right? So then in terms of market appraisal, it's how many people are prepared to pay 5 times more for something that is much better for them, okay? The answer is clearly some, right? It's not nobody. How many is it? In terms of, this is my advice to business owners. I think one of the biggest dangers that people do, and I saw it very early on in my career actually, is a danger of trying to sell to everybody, and you don't need to sell to everybody. If you said that there were 70 million people in the UK, and let's just say even 1% of those people really believed the Zukr journey, that's 700,000 customers. And you think, I don't know, if you said 700,000 people spent £100 a year or something, I don't know what the right amount is, that's 70 million pounds, for goodness sake. That's 70 million pounds of sales. Now, you think there's probably, I don't know. I mean, I would think Britain was quite a good place to sell Zukr in. I would have thought.
Yeah.
But you'll have other countries that are very enlightened, and so it might be in some countries you might get 10% of the population to switch to Zukr because, let's take places like Iceland and Norway and Sweden as good examples. So basically, to get drunk in those countries costs you a lot of money.
A lot of money.
Right, a lot of money, yeah. So I don't know what you're talking about. I know maybe £10 a pint or something. It's that sort of money, isn't it? But it doesn't mean to say that there aren't people in Oslo that get drunk every Saturday, does it? Because it just means they have to pay more to get drunk than we do. So I think there's the market appraisal bit, and obviously your reaction is positive to what I said, so that's also a good test. And then you've got things like brand appeal, the brand name. So brand name, spot on, I think.
Yeah.
Zukr says what it is, doesn't it? Really good, really like that. I love the pink. I love that. I love the whole pink branding and how it is. It's very impactful. So I think, wearing my marketing hat, you have a very limited amount of time to impress somebody, and you don't have any barriers. That's how I see it. There's nothing. One of the things I worked out quite early on is if you're trying to sell to somebody, you don't want to have anything in your armory which creates an opportunity for them to say no to you.
Yes.
If that makes sense. So, for instance, in my world, going back to the day I remember doing that, I had a Granada Scorpio at the time, and I remember going to see this new client, who really liked me, and I remember him looking at my car, and I was picturing him thinking, what's somebody as good as him driving that 5-year-old car, and you've got things like, those days it would be quality of business cards. Now, of course, I think it's things like the quality of your website, the brand image, all the packaging. So if you can, as Zukr, sit in front of somebody and say, basically, what you want people to think is, hey, how big am I? I can be whatever size you want me to be. There's no reason for you to look at me and think that I'm some little weak thing, from South Wales and Dorset or whatever, So then, it comes back. Then it comes back to things like bloody hard work. Hard work, doing the 12 hours, not sitting there and say it's Sunday, I don't do anything. It's doing whatever you need to do to get you to where you need to be, and then and on all sorts of things like that. So I think I would say that I would expect you to be at least moderately successful. And I think because of your belief, I would say more than 10% of me thinks you could be global. Say that would be,
yeah.
That's a very honest professional analysis live on the thing, isn't it? So.
Yes, we're really well. Thank you for that. That's very brilliant to have that appraisal, and we trust you so much, and we come to you for your mentorship, your guidance, but also because you're part of this crazy journey to help people, really help people across the world in a time where we have a crisis in health across the world, across economies in the world that are affected by all of the illnesses and problems that come with overconsumption of sugar. And we really are passionate to make an impact, and you're riding that wave and being with us in that journey is really exciting for us. So really excited.
Can I just ask you a question?
Sure.
Sorry, it's your show. So, is there a demand point where, let's just say we were 5 years down the road and actually the whole world's woken up to this? Could there be a time when Zukr is now only twice as expensive as opposed to 5 times, or is that not possible?
I think everything is possible. And one of the things that we're really excited about is being able to give it away as part of our membership. So that's the next thing that's coming up, which we're really excited about. And this show is going to be going out after our launches and announcements. So we are very, very excited about the opportunity to give our product to our members and to be able to not just give them a product, because there are millions and gajillions of products around slimming and wellness. People don't take any notice of that. But what they do actually want is support, love, education, empowerment, community, and to be part of a movement, a revolutionary movement, moving them towards health and well-being. And that's what we really want people to do, rather than just switch out a product and then it sits in the back of the cupboard. They never use it. It's in the back of the cupboard, isn't it, Luke? That's one of the things we're passionate about.
Yes, it's about the thing. Another thing that we're really passionate about is helping people on their journey, and that transition is what we're hand holding on. And I think that everything that Nabila has created with regard to things like the community, things like getting people involved and engaged, and the recipe ideas, because if we can get people engaged and the whole family having fun with this transition, and certainly taking away any pain or, as you mentioned, any barriers or resistance to that change, that's what we're about. It's about creating that movement, having a tribe of people coming with us on that journey, and that's the bit that we're excited about. And it's actually, it's not a standalone, it's not really in many ways not a product as such. It's more obviously the product underpins that because it helps people become sugar free. But then as people start becoming sugar free on this journey and using us, if you like, as that conduit to becoming sugar free, then they become part of that our community, and then we're sort of sharing that sort of love, and those people then will become dedicated followers. So I think that's the bit that I'm super excited about.
Really excited about, really, really excited about. And it's such a pleasure to have you on board this journey with us, Paul.
Thank you. It's good. So I suppose really what you're really doing is more creating. Well, you actually are creating a legacy, aren't you? So you've basically got a lead product being the sugar alternative.
Yes.
But it's actually part of a much bigger message, which is designed to make people healthier and all that sort of thing. So
and often
I think, and of course, what will happen? So going on, asking me to make predictions is what will happen, and I'd say this is inevitable, not just conjecture. Is you will end up with other relevant services and products that you will sell, because they will come off the back of who you are. Yeah. If you're forward thinking, not scared of anything, I can get up that mountain type people, then things will inevitably happen. Yeah. And then what you'll find is I don't know, maybe someone will listen to this and think, oh, they're nice people or whatever, and then you'll get someone who might start talking to you about something, and then maybe even something that's not hugely necessarily at this moment in time completely related to what you're doing, but opportunities develop, and I think when you are an entrepreneurial type person, then you're quite likely to follow your nose.
Absolutely. That's exactly right. And we're excited because as this program is aired as well, we will have announced our app and product offer, which is to help people become sugar free. It's a party in an app. We're inviting people in through the doors with beautiful cakes and removing all barriers for them to be able to have a healthier, happier life, and an opportunity for us to be working with some amazing partners that have already established themselves in the health, wellness and nutrition space that are going to be bringing their amazing content onto our platform. So it's a big, big mission to help people. And we know that there's a lot of work to do, and we are there with our sleeves rolled up, ready to do it.
It's also, I'd like to just say as well, Nabila, what we've been doing recently and having a lot of great traction is where we've been reaching out to people as in terms of doing joint ventures with people to their communities as well. So as you mentioned, Nabila, the health and wellness space, we're not competing with those people, but we've got people that are part of their community that are also, they're happy to work, want to work with us because they see the value in what we're doing and everything around our offering, and then wanting to share and engaging with us to share the message out to their communities. So that's a really good and fast track way for us to be spreading the word.
Exactly. Super excited. Super excited. So do you have any final words of wisdom that you would love to impart on any entrepreneurs and people who are really thinking about moving their businesses forward, or thinking of even a new business idea? Do you have any words that you wanted to leave us with, Paul, with your inspiration?
I'm glad you don't interview me every week. I have to say, I thought the discussion today was really excellent. As someone who does a lot of talking, I was pleased about today because we probably actually talked about things that I haven't talked about publicly before. Certainly not as well as I did today, which obviously is probably reflective of us, how we interact with each other, etc. So I think I've talked about I've tried to pick you as an example and look at what you do and why that makes you have every chance of being successful. Actually, I suppose the other, so I think I've already laid down most of the things. I think there's no substitute for hard work. Brave. You have to be brave, courageous. Quite often, you'll sit there thinking, why on earth am I doing this? This is mad, I think one of the things, maybe my final point is such a hard question to answer. So this is something I'll pass on to people. Hopefully, there'll be at least a few people who listen to this and feel a lot better afterwards. I don't know about you, but I would say. So I've been in business now for 30 years and 6 months, and maybe even every day, certainly more than once a week, I might feel panic stricken, say, like, or like maybe even like incredibly depressed, or, you're feeling really low, that sort of feeling. And I remember staying with a guy that was probably my best friend for quite some time. He was a client that walked in my office with naught. I set up a business, and now the business turns over £40 million. And I went to stay with him for the first time, funnily enough, near Portsmouth. And we were in his lounge drinking a glass of whiskey. And I don't know what gave me the courage to do this. I looked at him and I said, do you ever feel in a day like this? And I just described to him like I just did. And he went, yeah. And I said, how do you feel when this is happening? And he went, da, 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 da. Oh my God. Oh, that's such a relief. I thought it was me. Because people don't talk to other people about things, like I'm weak. I thought about jumping off a cliff yesterday. It's not something, but people don't talk about these things. So, so my parting gift to the listeners today is it's perfectly natural and human to have a whole range of emotions, from doubt, self-doubt, fear, all those sort of things, and just accept that's part of the journey. And ultimately, you have the choice to decide what is more important to you. And I think that's also something that's very important. I think people all too often aren't very good at actually working out what is more important to them. So, for instance, taking my example about, the person that was going for a walk with their children or whatever, which is perfectly fine. So my view would be there's nothing wrong with that, but just be more honest about it, right? So actually your choice is you're not actually as OCD as I am, for instance. So your commitment to your business is substantial, but not probably enough to get you to the point where the things you say. So life is all about choices. You know, how hard am I prepared to work? How do I maintain some sort of work-life balance? How do I keep myself sane? You know, all these sort of things. So yeah, I think that's the last one.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Those words would be of such comfort to so many people listening. And we know that the entrepreneurial journey is scary. It's like a scariest ride that you'll ever go on. And you just have to get used to that fear that creeps in every other day. And you're like, what's going to happen? I think you agree with this, Luke.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, indeed. Yeah.
And
And as you say in your book, Paul, keep going, don't give up. And, and I know watching a film recently, Ray Kroc talking about persistence, and keeping going. And, you will hit times where you have self-doubt, but you've got to kind of plow on through that, haven't you? And that's the grist there.
Absolutely. So
Indeed.
with that said, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on Sweet Liberation, Paul. What a completely different flavour to our podcast on this occasion, but it's been so wonderful to have you here talking to us about your story and giving us some words of wisdom and inspiration and motivation for us as entrepreneurs and for other entrepreneurs that are listening. Thank you so much for being our guest today, and we hope that this will not be the last time that you'll be back with us soon.
You're most welcome, and I'm very proud to know you.
Thank you
So much.
Thank you. Bye for now.